We are taking a look at foreground, middle ground, and background. Remember, items in my foreground are close to me and lower on the page. Middle ground are medium size, and in the middle, where background lines are going to be higher on the page and items are drawn smaller. Those are some things that we can learn when we're drawing foreground, middle ground, and background to help show space. Let's combine that knowledge with atmospheric perspective. As you take a look at atmospheric perspective, that is something that helps us when we're looking at color. What happens to the details and the color that happens as we show space. This says that the saturation of the color decreases with distance. As you look at this photograph, as well as the next two photographs, pay close attention not only to your foreground, middle ground, and background lines, but also pay attention to the saturation of the color. How does the color change as items are going back into the distance? Let's pay close attention. In a monochromatic color scheme, you can see that the darker colors are close and lighter colors further away, as well as in this perspective, darker colors and lighter colors further away. Let's get started. Beginning with the end in mind, I want you to create your own atmospheric perspective landscape. So you'll notice I began with my foreground, middle ground, and background lines, and then I'm thinking about the lighter saturation or the lightest color furthest away. So I'll just paint it white. In my next section, you'll notice I never washed my brush, but I'm just double loading my paintbrush with blue and white so that those colors can mix onto the page. And then lastly, a little more blue, almost completely, totally blue, for my line that's closest to me, my foreground space. Okay, now that I've got that, I'm gonna set that aside to dry. And grabbing a new paintbrush, I'm gonna do my trees with the same knowledge of atmospheric perspective. When I draw those trees that are furthest away, they're gonna be the lightest and the smallest, yet highest on the page. You might wanna use a skinny paintbrush for this, or if you find that it's challenging or you don't prefer to use paint for these trees, you could also use a white oil pastel, a gray oil pastel, and a black oil pastel. Those are the colors that I'm going to be using to create my tree. It's totally up to you what material you use. Just make sure that when you're putting your trees on, you can still have the details to make it look like a nice, neat tree. I know that I tried to use my round paintbrush and make it into a flat surface so that I could have a nice, thicker line for the branches. You might decide that you need a different brush, a skinnier brush, when you're drawing your tree with your limbs. You'll notice that my darkest tree, the items that are in my foreground, again, are totally black right now. I'm moving away from the grays, and I'm using my blacks, and I'm also, again, since it's close to me, trying to make it go all the way to the top of the page. So my foreground line, there we go. I'm getting my oil pastel out. That paint was just getting frustrating with the brush, so I grabbed my oil pastel to finish it off. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the end of my paintbrush to add a few snowflakes into the project. Again, you can use white oil pastel if you want to add some snowflakes with the end of into your sky. Totally up to you. There we have it. Okay, now let's set that aside to dry. And let's begin making the window. Stack them up. Carefully fold over just enough for some glue to be glued onto the paper. Okay, so now that you've got a nice little ledge for glue, we're going to design and draw our windows on this side. So don't worry about opening that up. Now we're going to start thinking about filling up the space and designing our window. Whatever kinds of shapes you think would look kind of cool for some shutters and some designs for the windows. You'll notice that the shapes that I draw are going to be nice and close together, just not touching one another. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw some triangles, some rectangles, and I'm also careful not to draw anything on the edges or the sides of my project. I'm going to probably start out with a circle maybe, but then this is a lot of black space, so I'm going to try drawing some more items that are not touching but are close to the shape. I also try to think about drawing my items nice and large so that they're easy enough to cut out. Okay. When you have your shapes put onto your paper, again, close to each other, just not touching each other, utilizing as much of the space as possible, then you're going to bring it to Mrs. Foxen. Mrs. Foxen then is going to take these, and we're going to grab a, I'm going to do this for you because I know I don't have enough supplies for everyone. These are X-Acto knives, and I'm going to go ahead and cut both of these together. Okay, using an X-Acto knife, I'm going to be cutting out the shapes that you have drawn for you. Now that our project is dry, we're going to start thinking about what do we want to put into our project, into our landscape. So you can either do a photocopy of yourself, mine is up close, or you can do one that's middle distance, a little further away. And I've taken these objects or pictures and added a little bit of colored pencil to them and cut them out carefully. You're welcome to do that idea also, where you can see, for myself, I could be in the foreground of my project, or I thought this one kind of is cool, where I did a picture of myself and now it looks like it's in the middle ground. So you're welcome to draw a picture or have a picture of yourself to put into your artwork, or you can even start drawing on your own ideas too with oil pastels. So I was thinking in my background I might put a little snowman, and he's going to be pretty small because he's really far away. So I'm going to think about size as I start to add on items into my picture too. Okay, I sped it up a little bit, actually quite a lot, because what it is that you put into your picture is totally up to you. So I put myself in there looking like I'm throwing some snowballs into the air or juggling with snowballs, a winter wreath, a reindeer, and then I thought I'm going to spend a lot of time on my dog Tucker because I love walking through the forest with my dog Tucker. So he's a border collie and he's up close, so I tried to give a lot of detail into this part of the project. But I thought to myself, it's totally worth it because when I think about forest walking, I definitely think about Tucker. So I also threw in a few Christmas lights to the top just because it's kind of a fun addition to the project. Lastly, I'm going to go ahead and glue down my shutters when I'm all done with my picture. And I love the way this looks. I think it's pretty cool with the landscape as well as having some movable parts. So thanks for watching and happy art making.